First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. So in this talk, I'm going to talk about this paper, which is already in the archive, and we are planning to send it to PRL soon. So in this paper, we are analyzing just the axion stream evolution. And in order to understand how that evolves and how it emits actions. So actions nowadays are the most viable dark matter candidates, and they can be formed in two different mechanisms. Can be formed via the misalignment mechanism or via strings, or emitting from strings. In this sense, we are just interested in the string case. So in this talk, first of all, I'm going to explain a little bit which are, or what are the cosmic strings, cosmic effects, then a few words about actions, then how or why we are analyzing the string evolution, then I'm going to focus on the simulations and show the results that we have obtained. So axion strings are topological effects created in the early universe during the phase transitions when the symmetry spontaneously broke. So let's analyze them, and let's start just with a really simple case, which is a kink in 1 + 1 dimension. So we have one space, one time dimensions, and this is described by the following Lagrange. Here, phi is just a real field that have a time and space components. The potential is the following one, and is described in this plot here. So during the phase transition, this potential has evolved from just this potential to the following. It's not really the Mexican hat, but the Mexican hat potential. We can see that when the field is 0, we are in the maximum of the potential, just there. So we have just the energy is concentrated there. And now we have to imagine that we have a really long space, and in both ends, or the both ends are not causally connected. So the field can choose in one place to go to minus eta, and at the other end to go to plus eta. We know that the field is continuous, so we can't have jumps in the field values. So we have to go from minus infinity to plus infinity in a continuous way. That means that at some point we have to go through the top of our potential. So we will have a concentration of energy just there. So in some sense, or not in some sense, that's the topological effect of the cosmic defect. So this is just a simple expansion in plus 1 + 1. So let's analyze it, just our case, which is cosmic defects or axionic strings. In this case, we have a similar Lagrangian, but the field has several components. All the components can be real, or we can have just, for example, if we have two components, we can have a complex scalar field, or just a two components real field. In this case, we have strings, so we need two components. So we choose to be just two real scalar fields. Now the potential is just the real Mexican hat potential. But now we have to imagine just a three-dimensional space and patches that are causally disconnected. So this is just a 2D slice of it. So we can imagine that in each different disconnected patch, the field has chosen a different vacuum here. So imagine in this case. So in this case, we have different patches that initially went down, start growing, and they just match here. And we can see that in this patch, the field is just around there. In this patch, the field is somewhere there. There is somewhere there, and like that. And we can see that in this point there, in order to have a continuum field, we have to go through the maximum of this potential. So we have a concentration of energy in that point. Now this is just a 2D slice, so we have to imagine this just a 3D patches. So we have a string growing through there. So that's what we are analyzing. Those are the cosmic defects that we are analyzing. So they are just field configurations that are created during the early universe phase transitions. So action. So the Pechepi field was proposed to solve the CP, the storm CP problem, but if we analyze the angular excitation of that field, we can realize that we have a particle there. We have the action there. As I said, there are two different mechanisms to produce the action. We have the mixed element case and we have the string case. But the thing is that we can have action from both mechanisms, or we can have action from only one mechanism. How? So if the Pechepi symmetry is broken during inflation, our strings will be diluted away due to inflation. So the strings, they are not going to just emit actions. So we'll only have actions from mixed element mechanism. But if the Pechepi symmetry is broken after inflation, we have a viable network of strings emitting actions until the QCD phase transition. At that time, as we are going to see, domain walls are created matching all the strings, and the network just vanishes or disappears just in less than a Hubble time. So we can explain this whole action string evolution using the following Lagrangian. So in this case, if you compare the Lagrangian with the previous one, you can see that we have this extra term here, but this is the term that acts after the QCD breaking that creates domains matching all the different strings and make the network disappear. In this case, what we are going to do is just we are going to focus on the Lagrangian that describes the network evolution, and we are going to analyze just the behavior of that evolution. Afterwards, if we have more time to make simulations, we will try to add the term and analyze just the whole evolution of the action string network. But why we want to analyze the actions? So I said we want to just analyze the action emission, but in order to understand that, we want to understand really well how the network of a string behaves. How can we analyze that? Using these scaling parameters. So in some sense, both of the scaling parameters are the same, but you can write them in a different form. So this xi describes the string separation, that's it, which is the distance between one string to the other, or you can write it in this zeta form, where you have the more or less the string density. So in our case, what we are going to do is just take a network of strings, analyze or compute the total length, which is just the most important term to compute these scaling parameters, and then analyze how these two parameters evolve over time. So why we are going to do that? Because in our previous analysis, where instead of analyzing action emission, we were more focused on the CMB effects of global strings, we saw that our simulations predict a behavior where this zeta or goes to constant. Or similarly, that sign goes linearly in time. However, quite new results are saying that this parameter zeta grows in time, described by a logarithm behavior. So both of the results are contradictory. The behavior is very different. So we wanted to analyze which is the reason behind this different behavior between two different analyses. So in order to do that, we took our Lagrangian, we applied for time, we obtained 1 million CPU hours in the dial to do the simulations. Then, after the simulation, we measured the total length and analyzed the behavior of the scaling parameters. So, how we compute the total length of the strings? Doing field theory simulations. In this case, they are not lattice field theory simulations. In this case, what we have is just a lattice, n-cube lattice, with n-cube sites, where we have a field value there at point x, and we are evolving in time, so we have also evolution in time of that field. So we have just imagine a piece of space space, just evolving on time. For us, until now, the scaling of this network were indispensable in order to just obtain information from that process. First of all, because if the network is not in a scaling, that means that the network of a string will end up dominating the universe, will end up dominating the energy budget of the universe, so those strings or those effects are not viable. Or on the other hand, they can also vanish quite soon, and they are not giving any effect. Or also, if you have a network, a small size network that you are simulating, you can't just, if your network is not scaling, you can't extrapolate those results to cosmological scales. Because imagine that you are analyzing a network with density equal 1, and then if you are saying that it's not scaling, that means that at cosmological scale, that network will have density equal 100, let's say. So you can extrapolate the results that you have obtained with density equal 1 to 100, because that's not realistic. So, but what is scaling in our terms? So for us, scaling is that this psi parameter behaves linearly in time, or that this zeta, the density parameter, behaves as constant over time. So if we have this behavior, we can say, okay, we can take our results and we can extrapolate to cosmological scales and obtain just results that can be viable for that. So, more details about these physical simulations. So as I said, we have a lattice with n cube points. We take the Lagrangian that I showed you, we discretize it, obtain equation of motions, and evolve them in each lattice point over time. So, we have also periodic boundary conditions, that is, things that left the box from here, enters from the other side, the directions. This implies a limit on the evolution time that we have. So, because if we just send a light ray from the center in a line, that go that way and also the other way, but at some time it will just match. So we have to stop our simulation there. If not, we will have casual relations. Then we can't just start our simulation with a net already created. So we have to create a network. In order to do that, we use random initial conditions, which are Gaussian random fields, with some correlation length. So we start, so this is a timeline, so we impose our random initial conditions there. We need some time of diffusion because due to the random initial conditions, we have some extra energy in our system, so we need to just dilute that energy. We do it just using diffusion, and after this point, we can start analyzing our string network. That's the place where we have a network of strings that is evolving, just following the equation of motions. And we can evolve it for radiational matter eras. In our case, we are just focusing on radiation era. It's the time that action strings will be first. But there are some other aspects that we have to take into account also. So as I said, we have a discrete lattice. So we have to be sure that our dx, or the distance between different points, is small enough. So we have a string, so we have to resolve the code of the string. So if we have a really huge lattice distance, we will just miss our string. But if we have a really small one, our simulation boxes are really small, and we couldn't just obtain good results. As I said, we have random initial conditions, and that means that using different random initial conditions, we have different network initializations. And this is going to be very important in our results, as we are going to see. And then, as I said, so we have a finite size box, as I said, with boundary conditions. With boundary conditions, we have a limit in the evolution time. Apart from that, so we are using co-moving coordinates in our box, and the string width is a physical length. So that means that our string length is shrinking in our co-moving coordinates. So we want to just detect our string, so we have to take into account that. How we can do it? Just using the PRS algorithms that changes lambda in a following way. So if S is equal to 0, we have that the core is fixed in co-moving units. So we can just follow it. We are doing a small trick, but our core is fixed, and we don't have to care about it. On the other hand, if S is equal to 1, our core is shrinking in our co-moving coordinates, so we have to just be sure that at the end of the simulations, our core can be detected using the lattice discretization that we have. Apart from that, we want, our main goal is to measure length, so we want to detect the string. So as I said, we are evolving fields, not just strings or point-like effects. So we want to detect them. How we detect them? So this is just one lattice of our simulation, so we see how the fields behave. In this case, as I said, if all the fields are pointing outwards, we will have a string growing to that point. So doing this, or detecting strings through all the points in our lattice, we can have something like this. So this is just 2D slice, so we can have a string move. But it's not a realistic string. So due to the discretization, we have this so-called Manhattan effect, and we have to reduce it. So we are just inserting a factor, which is 2/3, to just reduce this effect. And we can see that comparing with other methods to reduce for that, the values are comparable and they are good enough. So using everything, we have something like this. So we have a box and we have strings moving around. So the thing is that here, the strings are not detected using the method that I showed you. Here, we are just analyzing the energy. So this is energy isosurfaces. But for us, for the main goal, this is not useful. We need just the length. In order to detect a good or just a nice estimate of the length, we can use this, because in this case we have a really thick strings with a lot of mesh points inside, and it's easier to just put this, but in order to just measure the string, we have to do the method that I showed you. Okay, so we performed more than 100 simulations in dial using 1 minus CPU hours, so you can see here the different cases that we used. Now, in my results, I'm going to just focus on the physical core size, that is that the core of the string is physical, is shrinking, and in a different initial correlation length, and different lattices. We tried also 8K cube, but we have some problems, maybe in the future. So just after doing all the simulations, measuring the length of the strings, in all the time steps, doing all the simulations, we can compute our scale parameters. So as I said, there are two different results. The one is the standard scaling. So we can just take our parameters and fit them to these functions. But there's also works that claim that there is a logarithmic corrections. So we can also take our results and fit them to these functions here. In order to see if inside the standard scale there is some logarithm. If there is some logarithmic effects there, we also fit the residuals to the logarithm behavior. So these are results. So these are results for the standard scaling. In this case, we have simulations for the biggest lattice size, 4K, different initial correction length,
So we can see that the straight lines are results from the simulations, dotted lines are the fits to the standard scaling fit functions. So we can see that the fits are quite good. We can see that the parameters agree for different sizes. The errors are quite small. So one can see that, okay, the fit is quite nice. We can do the same for all the logarithmic correction fits. In this case, what we can see is that alpha is the parameter in front of the logarithm. In both cases, alpha is compatible with 0, and the spread in the values is huge. So how can we understand that? So as I didn't mention anything about this T-naught. That T-naught is something related with the initialization of the string. As I said, we have random initial conditions that set a different initial string configuration. So we can have a network behaving equally with the same value of beta, but due to initial different random initial conditions, they can give a different value of T-naught. If this is just extending a bit this, we can see that if the time is much higher than T-naught, T-naught can be neglected, and the effect is not, we can't see the effect of T-naught. But in our cases, in the case of the simulations, T is similar to T-naught, and we can neglect this T-naught. But if you neglect it, you can see a kind of logarithmic growth in this zeta. So in order to do that, we compute the value of our parameters with respect to CTC. This is the values for the standard scaling. We can see that for different T-naughts, the values of beta are similar. So here we have simulations for different sizes, different correlation lengths. So all of them seem to agree quite well. But for the case of the logarithmic corrections, we can see that there is a clear correlation between this T-naught and the value of the parameters. And also in the places where T-naught is 0, we can see that alpha, the parameters in front of the logarithm, are equal to 0, and that this value of zetas are the same as the ones that we are obtaining from the standard scaling case. So, as I said, so these are my summary, the main conclusions. So we can say that axion strings scale very well in the standard case. So we can say that we can extrapolate the results obtained from the simulations and also from the picture symmetry to the scale. And we say that the apparent growth in the logarithmic growth is due to not taking into account the initial string configuration. And that's it. Thank you very much.
So a very general question. Yeah. So am I right that this is just one way to say axioms? I mean, the usual way would be the breaking of projection queen symmetry, like explanations of the field. That's it. Still, there's nothing wrong with that.
No. The thing is that you can have that. So as I said, both of them are compatible. So you can have the mixed alignment mechanism, the one that you are talking about, and then in the same way, once you are breaking Peche queen, you are going to produce the strings. So you have actions produced by that misalignment mechanism plus the strings.
So if the strings is inevitable,
Yes.
and the strings will inevitably give you actions as well.
Yes.
So you'll always have to, as a general statement, that you'll always have the two kinds of actions.
So the thing is that if Peche queen is broken during inflation, you can forget about the strings. If it is broken after inflation, you have to take into account both of them.
I mean, they broken before inflation and then no actions. But then, so are these strings, and I'm confused by this, these strings different from the keyboard strings that are incompatible with the micro background? How do they get around?
So these are global strings, so they are not local strings.
So they don't violate anything we know about the micro background?
So they don't violate anything. One, because they are short-lived. So they only live from Peche queen until QCD. So they are not present nowadays. So you can take the just predictions obtained from normal strings and say, okay, they are violating, or the number of strings that you need here is much higher, so you are not seeing anything in CMB. That's not true, because they are so short-lived that the effects are pretty tiny too.
So you say the effects are short-lived, so they don't need any
So
temperature, they don't produce any temperature fluctuations in the
yeah, or the effect is not so high.
It's detectable.
We don't really know. So we didn't. So for example, we analyzed the CMB effects for global strings that live from creation until nowadays, and we put some limits on the tension of the strings. But apart from that, I mean, in these cases, you are not worried about that because they are really short-lived, and we don't really expect some other huge effects in CMB or any other thing.
Other questions? So I had a kind of a technical question. So you illustrated very nicely the problem of having a large enough domain, but at the same time you're solving the core of the string. So are there efforts to put this like on IMR?
Yeah, so I think that people from GR Chombo are trying to do that.
So that's what you're solving.
Yeah.
That's what you want, no?
Yes,
That's
so but-
to both sides.
So in the case of strings, the thing is that there are two approaches of analyzing strings. So you can analyze it with field simulations, you can analyze it with non-Bugotto strings. So in that cases, you don't really have to resolve any field or resolve anything, because non-Bugotto strings are just strings that are evolved using some effective theories. So the problem is that there are some tension between them. So they are using GR Chombo to see which are the differences. So instead of doing field simulations, so we mentioned that in our cases, our networks are quite dense. So if you want to apply that, you need also a lot of resources. So although you have a space, you have. So in the code of the show, there are out of the strings. So it's not just you have to focus on one small thing and you can go deep in there.
But the volume filling factor,
But-
just from your visualization.
Yeah, but the thing is that with what people in GR Chombo are doing is just use adaptive measures to analyze the differences between non-Bugotto and field theory. If that can be solved, the things will be much better. So we will be able to just simulate things much bigger, much faster. So the efforts are just in solving the tension instead of making big simulations, just do it in a small simulations to solve the tension.
Any other questions? If not,
I just got some criticism to matching the papers.